persecution that the state of Israel has ever perpetrated against the Jewish people happened in 1948, when they dared to call themselves the State of Israel. When they dared to refer to themselves as a Jewish state. Do you know that a week after the flotilla incident, Jews in Turkey were scared to leave their houses? They didn't even go to the synagogue because the local residents of Turkey blamed them and would hold them accountable for the acts of the State of Israel. That is the most insidious crime that state has committed against our people. They thought, in their great brilliance, that in order to eliminate anti-Semitism and in order to protect the Jewish people, we have to change what the Jewish people are from a religion, a mamleches kohanim, a goy kodesh, to a nation of soldiers and warriors. What in the world is a Jewish state? Can you tell me? I know what a Jewish person is. I know what a Jewish philosophy is. But the adjective Jewish does not accommodate the noun state. It's like saying a Jewish tree, a Jewish car. What does it mean? The only way the Zionists were able to create a Jewish state for the noun states to accommodate the adjective Jewish is to change the definition of Jewish. They thought that by now all the Jews in the world, or all that matter anyway, will be remade in their own image, that the world would be at peace with them, that they'd be able to vanquish their enemies with their armies. And now they see that we still live. They see that we are here and we are rapidly expanding, and they see that we raise our voices. They see that they are a failure, and that's why they hate us. This is the greatest crime committed against the Jewish people by the Zionists, the identity theft. We Jews are blamed in the eyes of the world. We are held accountable for the actions of the State of Israel. We need to tell the world that Zionism is not Judaism. We need to tell the world that the State of Israel is not our elected officials. They do not speak in our name.
Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today is Tuesday, October 23rd, 2012. I'm Darko. This first article I have for you is the Zionist Organization of America to manipulate global Jewish communities and a myriad of organizations to incite fear amongst the global Jewish communities, manipulating and exploiting the best and the brightest. The elite throughout history have thrived by dividing and conquering people who would otherwise pose an insurmountable obstacle, united and self-determined. While it has been covered ad nauseum how society in the West is divided along false political paradigms and people across the Muslim world are divided along sectarian lines, little attention has been given to the means by which the global elite isolate and manipulate Jewish communities around the world. In simple terms, the method of operation is a two-pronged in configuration. Fears induced by radicalizing controlled opposition. Harold Charles, or Hal Turner, the quintessential Jew baiter, turned out to be a federal proxy. His style and talking points provided fodder for legions of imitators who carry on his work to this very day, even after he was exposed controlled opposition. It says, while Turner was a creation and perpetuation of the U.S. government, the legions of manipulated followers he created harbored real hatred. In a world where Jews are hiding in every shadow corner, conspiring against them, this hatred, fear, paranoia manifests itself into demonstrable bigotry and even acts of violence. This says the Zionists of America report, a publication of the Zionist Organization of America, and you have some of the people up there: presidential candidate Michelle Bachmann, Glenn Beck, of course Netanyahu, and the Adelsons. The organization intentionally perpetuates a strategy of tension used to co-opt and manipulate people on all sides of the political spectrum. While the impetus for this hatred is manufactured, the manifested violence that stems from it is very real. Some of the most notorious armed groups Israel claims it is fighting in the Middle East are monsters of their own very creation. Turner's work in the Mideast is carried out by U.S. Saudi-funded madrasas that dot the region, indoctrinating legions who are similarly suspicious, hateful, and even violent towards anything perceived as Jewish or Zionist. The hatred, fear, and violence perpetuated between the Jewish people and the perceived enemies has been a prominent driving force behind Wall Street and London's centuries-long campaign of invasion, occupation, subversion, and exploitation across the Muslim world, including the Arab Spring, which was U.S. engineered all the way. It says here, Hosni Mubarak claiming he had sent weapons and riot control gear to assist his government. Says in suppressing anti-American, anti-Israel protesters. In reality, the protests in Egypt's streets were planned years in advance, beginning as early as in 2008 by confabs organized by the U.S. State Department. In essence, the global elite played people's emotional persuasions like a fiddle and executed one of the most profound geopolitical reorderings in recent history, including the ousting of Muammar Gaddafi, who was accused of being Jewish, and hiring Israeli mercenaries. And they're doing the same tactic in Syria with Haaretz, Israelis' op-ed titled, "Israel's favorite Arab dictator of all is Assad. There is no global Zionist empire seeking to instate Jewish supremacy across the globe." So you can go in there and check it out. Links will be posted in YouTube's video description. Hezbollah associates accuse Israel of role in Beirut bombing. I covered this before from our Press TV article, basically saying that that individual that was assassinated was actually talking about Israel and exposing something that had to do with Israeli Mossad. Says the Druze Party and leading daily say Israel had a motive in the assassination of Lebanese security chief. Of course, yeah. What happened after all the riots and stuff like that? Protest. Yeah, they said this Hassan had exposed Israeli espionage in Lebanon. He has succeeded in exposing 25 Israeli spy cells in Lebanon, also informed Syria of 17 Israeli collaborators within the ranks of the military. And I found this article. It says study finds no anti-Semitism or anti-Israel activity at most North American colleges. 97% of campuses conclude that divestment movement backfired for anti-Israeli activists. So this report, it was actually done by an American-Israeli cooperative enterprise, which released this study. Went on and said that 78% of Jewish students reported witnessing or personally being subjected to anti-Semitism. They said the new report found an inconsistent figure with the findings going on, saying that a different survey found 43% of the Jewish students saw anti-Semitism as a problem, significantly lower but still a disturbing figure. So it's kind of interesting that they use those two different words. Because what? Because California passed this resolution equating criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. So this article was talking about how colleges, whatever, they're not divesting. I guess that's pulling investments and stuff like that, if I understand that correctly. But yeah, so if you criticize the state of Israel, the Zionist terrorist state of Israel, you are considered anti-Semitic, which is not necessarily true. But they try to create a law to do that. So it was the current protests at colleges in California. Klux Klan sets Afro-American women on fire. I saw this, I'm like, no way, you know what I mean? These guys, a lot of the times, they do their work behind the scenes in the shadows. I mean, they're millionaires, some of them. They own businesses. They're, you know, I don't think they would be doing this nowadays. They're more covert. And the article says a 20-year-old woman has received third-degree burns after being set on fire by the KKK in State Park in Louisiana. Goes on and says that the three men attacked this individual while she was exercising. But the interesting part is I found this article after reading the comment boards. It's actually updated October 23rd. Police, burn wounds self-inflicted. So after all that, police in Williamsboro are announcing a new news conference that they believe this Sharmeka Moffat fabricated a story about being attacked and burned Sunday night, by three men who wrote KKK on the hood of a car. They police go on and say they now believe that she wrote the KKK and nigger on the hood of her Buick LaCrosse with toothpaste and then set fire to herself. Something I noticed is there's a lot of, they're really trying to stir up this race war, race riots, even on Infowars. I've noticed they keep talking about that, race riots and stuff like that. I mean, eventually it's going to be self-perpetuating and they're going to create it. Also, a lot of anti-Muslim stuff, especially surrounding that Pakistani story with that girl being killed. Now they're talking about another one, and I'm seeing all kinds of articles about, oh, you know, a wife had her hands cut off because she wanted to go find a job or something like that. It's basically, I've covered this before about U.S. and the Western culture. They don't understand. They want everybody to be carbon copies of themselves, and so they're really ignorant, and they just see that stuff, and it incites fear, and of course they get angry. And what's the government? What's the power? You know, what are these our masters going to do? What solution are they going to offer? So around the election time. Russian anti-Putin activist admits riot plot. So Russian investigators say a detained anti-Kremlin activist has admitted trying to foment riots with funding from a Georgian MP. So there you go. And this isn't the first time. Remember, Russian opposition confab at U.S. Embassy. Russian opposition caught filing into U.S. Embassy in Moscow. So, yeah, this is after they did their little protest. They filed into the embassy, U.S. Embassy. Out red-handed, Russia's opposition long accused by the Kremlin of being foreign-funded, which is why they created that foreign agents bill for NGOs and that. FEMEN activists to sue Ukrainian TV channel or fake program. Again, this has happened before, where it basically said the whole story, activists say the whole story is fake, and that actually they're earning their money from abroad. Accusations against Assad as a camouflage for a big geopolitical game, says the Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov. He said those who accuse the Syrian leader of destabilizing the region are in fact playing a big geopolitical game. He said, you know perfectly well how mass media can manipulate public opinion. You're likely aware of how the Western countries and other states of the region treat the situation around Syria. An extremely simplified interpretation of the situation is now circulating, which, as I'm concerned, has its roots in the interests of those who stand behind it. He went on, he says also that he shared his opinion that the Arab Spring is the fruit of George W. Bush's labor and his Middle East pro-democracy policy. They're talking about the Project for a New American Century. It's really neocons and stuff like that. What is relevant here is that those calls for changes in democratization were not agreed on with the region's states. He said they made a horror story out of Assad. All accusations against him are groundless. In fact, this is from the New York Times, so it's, you know, pretty good propaganda. Putin's new fortress, Russia. It said Putin's tightening of the screws is a part of a broader pattern, which includes a return to the confrontation with the United States and NATO. And it's not them that's starting it. It's just that their interests are starting to collide here. The United States must, because they actually have some. They actually have the ability to stand up for themselves now. The U.S. must specifically recognize that the reset policy of see no evil, hear no evil has contributed to the trampling of human rights in Russia. So just a bunch of bullshit, right? We just covered that they foment and import all that crap. Putin flexes muscle in big tests of Russia's nuclear arsenal. Again, this is from Reuters or Rothschilds. This is where it's coming from. Putin took a leading role in the latest tests of Russia's nuclear arsenal, with these exercises held on Friday, featuring prominently in the news reports on the state TV, which seemed aimed to show Russians and the world that Putin is the hands-on chief of a resurgent power. So I just remember in October, actually, they were supposed to be starting a draft of like thousands of troops into the Russian army too, but it's like I said, the West Anglo-Zionist establishment wants to dominate the entire planet, and they don't like other families, other bloodlines, other factions, other countries or corporations also getting in on deals and businesses, because that's what it's all about. Regional Russian prosecutor bans Muslim hijab in schools. So kind of interesting that they did this. But at the same time, doing this, Russia drafts new ethnic policy of multi-people nation report. So kind of surprised by this. Gone is the formula that stressed the importance of ethnic Russians, while the concept of a multi-people Russian nation is introduced. Previously, also launching a smoking crackdown, which is kind of shocking to me. And lastly, fewer Russians like the U.S., but still friends, says a poll. Those who dislike the U.S. jumped from 27 to 38%. Thank you.